There's a lot of things going on with inflation. I'm not going to try to talk you out of labor inflation, or I'm sorry, food inflation or energy inflation. These are real things, they matter. But labor inflation is by far the biggest one. Now, the next people down are my generation, Gen X. And when Gen X looks up at the boomers, our primary feeling is utter and complete disrespect and disgust. There's a whole presentation in there. Let me focus on one thing. The way that the boomers treat family, we don't like at all. And it has to do with the numbers. When the boomers entered the workforce in the mid-60s to the early 80s, there were so many of them that they pushed down the cost of labor. They competed with one another. This is one of the reasons why the boomer generation has a reputation for being so physically mobile. They had to go to wherever the job was. It got so bad that a lot of boomer families put the second spouse into the workforce in order to make ends meet, which only pushed down the cost of labor even more. That's the primary reason why boomers have the highest divorce rate in American history. And Gen X looks at that and like, no, we are not doing that. We value our time at least as much as our money, and we are going to be single income earners for households. And as a result, our marriage rates are much more durable. But wow, have we paid for that? Because there are 800 gajillion boomers and like 14 Xers, and we have been the low men and women on the totem pole our entire professional careers. And we have seen the lowest rates of recompense gains, the lowest raise rates in American history. Until now. Because all those boomers are going away. And even if we all wanted to work, and we do not, there were never going to be enough of us in the first place to fill all those shoes. And so now we are seeing the highest raises of any demographic in American history. And this has at least another 10 years to run. Gen X, our time has finally arrived. And the rest of you know that as labor inflation, but you can suck it. All right, the Zoomers. New kids on the block. The single most important thing to remember about the Zoomers is that they are not millennials. Millennials were raised by the boomers. They were raised and they were told that they were special and that you should do whatever you want. You should go get that art history degree. We're not going to keep track of the score at the soccer games. You can live in the basement as long as you want. You be you. As a result, they have a very high self-confidence. They're very good in group situations. They're great managers. They're great team players. They're collaborative. They're cooperative. All positive points that are backed up by the data very firmly. These are not Zoomers. Zoomers were raised by this guy's generation. We told them that you will never have Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security because the boomers are going to suck that dry. You can't rely on anyone. You've got to be better. Not better than the millennials, that's easy. Better than everyone. You've got to work hard, you've got to sacrifice, and you have to realize that the world is going to do you no favors. So, to that end, we're going to keep track of the score at the soccer game. We're going to write it down in this little book. We're going to read it to you every night. Your backup college is going to be Harvard. And when you turn 17 and a half, get the hell out of my house. They're hardworking, almost pathologically so. They're loyal. They're creative, but they're antisocial. They don't trust anyone. They do not work well with others. And their dream job is to work coding in the dark in a closet that locks from the inside. They never want to meet you. They're also the smallest generation we've ever had. Between the large boomers leaving and the small Zoomers coming in, we have a shortage this calendar year of 400,000 workers nationally. And we know what the inflow and the outflow from the labor market is because they're all here already. It's going to increase that shortage every year for the next 12 until it peaks in 2030, 40 at an annual shortage of about 900,000. It's hardwired in. Now, there's the millennials. We've talked about some of the positive attributes. It's only fair to cover some of the negative. Narcissistic, self-absorbed, arrogant, needy, still live at home, show up to work at the crack of Tuesday at noon for their first hour of work. Yeah, the data supports this too. Really does, for half of them. The other half have always done everything that we expected. I phrased that wrong. I didn't phrase that fairly. The other half have always done everything that we have always demanded. They graduated from college a semester early. They didn't go to Europe for a decade to find themselves. They went straight into the workforce. And because of it, they got screwed. When the financial crisis hit in 08, they were the last ones in the door, so they were first ones kicked out. Whether it's because the millennials did everything right or everything wrong, they missed out on 5 years on average of work experience in their 20s. Formative years they will never recover. They will always be behind. They are the least skilled worker cadre we have ever had for their age bracket. And they will be behind until the day they retire. And yet, the hope is still with them. Because they're a large generation. A large generation generates a large generation. The boomers generated, the millennials will generate whatever comes next. Which means, in 10 years, when the millennials are entering their 50s and having their midlife crises, I can't wait for that, they will enter that investment-rich cadre that my generation cannot be because there aren't enough of us. And capital costs will start coming down finally. But more importantly, when their kids grow up, large generation generates a large generation. When those kids grow up, get trained into the workforce in the 2040s, we will finally get back to a labor structure that looks like what we remember from 2019. All we have to do is wait 20 years. This will fix itself. So if you're going to take any advice from me today, hire and borrow, hire and borrow, hire and borrow, hire and borrow, hire and borrow. The hiring situation is the best it will be for 20 years. The financial system is the cheapest it will be for 10. Do it now. Don't wait 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or 90 months. You have a decade or more to wait before conditions normalize. And it's so much worse everywhere else. Here are our millennials, the people who will save us all. But wow, check out Japan and Germany. These are countries that have terminal demographic structures in the 80s. The German economic model